Hello, this is the Fantasy Father. I'm here to bring you my Week 15 sits and starts. So this is playoff time for most of you. If you're watching this show, you've made it to the semifinals of your playoffs more than likely. So congratulations, that's a huge accomplishment. So now you need 2 more wins to claim the top prize. So let's see what I have for you this week. Let's start out with my sits. First of all, I have Matt Ryan. This is the second week in a row he's been on my list. Going against Jacksonville. Matt Ryan has 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in the past 4 games. That's just atrocious. He should do a little bit better this week against Jacksonville, but I have absolutely no trust in Matt Ryan. I have him on one of my fantasy teams, and I benched him the past 3 weeks, and it's been phenomenal benching him. He's been terrible. He turns the ball over a lot. The offensive line is awful. He's not getting a lot of time to throw the ball down the field. Look to get someone else in your lineup if you can. Next, I have Ted Ginn Jr. going against the New York Giants. Yes, I know he had a huge game last week, but think about this. Teddy Ginn only had 2 catches. Yes, both of those were touchdowns, but only 2 catches. That's just not going to get it done week to week. He's not going to have 2 catches for touchdowns every week, so you don't need that kind of boom or bust performance when you're in the playoffs in fantasy football. You can get away with this in week 6 or 7, but not week 15 where it's do or die. Look to get Ted Ginn Jr. out of your lineup if you can. Third, I have James White. This is the second week in a row he's been on this list going against Tennessee. I do not like him again. I told you guys last week James White wasn't going to have a great performance, and outside of that touchdown, he had 1 carry for 2 yards and a score. That's just awful. Like I said, the Patriot running backs will drive you nuts in fantasy football. Get James White out of your lineup again this week because who knows what he's liable to do. Next, I have Dez Bryant going against New York Jets. $6,900 on FanDuel, $6,000 on DraftKings. I mean, this is just an atrocious offense the Cowboys have put on the field now. The quarterback cannot throw the ball down the field. They just dink and dunk it. Not a lot of opportunities here for Dez Bryant. I hate saying to bench him, but this is the second week in a row that I'm telling you to bench Dez Bryant. Not a great matchup here. The Jets are pretty good defensively. Just nothing for Dez Bryant to do in this offense. Awful matchup. Get him out of your lineups if you can. Last but not least, I have Isaiah Crowell going against Seattle. I know he put up a huge game last week. He had a couple touchdowns, but that was against subpar competition with the San Francisco 49ers. The Seattle Seahawks have played great of late. I do not like Crowell doing much this week. I think he has maybe 50 to 70 total yards, but I do not think he scores, and especially won't score twice. So get Isaiah Crowell out of your lineups. So now let's look at a few players that could help you win this week in fantasy football in the semifinals. So let's see. First of all, I have Tyrod Taylor going against Washington. Great matchup here for Tyrod. Tyrod's been solid. The last 3 games, he has 8 total touchdowns. Look for Tyrod to have a couple touchdowns this week. Probably put up around 20-25 points in fantasy. Really like this matchup. Next, I have Tim Hightower. Tim Hightower here to save your fantasy football season going against Detroit. Big game last week. He had 29, I think he had 28 or 29 carries, 95 yards. Look for another 25 touches for Hightower this week. Look for him to possibly score as well against the Lions. I really like Hightower. I picked him up in one of my leagues, and I'm really glad I did. Next, I have Charcandrick West going against Baltimore. $5,900 on FanDuel, $4,800 on DraftKings. Really like West this week. He's been kind of limited because he's been splitting a lot of carries with Ware, but Ware looks to be banged up. He doesn't look like he's going to play this week, so look for a big game for Charcandrick West going against Baltimore. Not a great defense here. Look for West to have a big game against Baltimore. Fourth, I have John Brown going against the Eagles. $6,300 on FanDuel, $4,900 on DraftKings. I really like John Brown. He's been a stud. He's a deep ball threat. He's super fast. Phenomenal matchup this week against Philly. Look for John Brown to put up, 80, 90 yards and a score, if not more. Really like John Brown. Terrific matchup this week against the Eagles. Last but not least, another guy that could save your fantasy football season with all these injuries this year, Denard Robinson going against Atlanta. He has a very favorable matchup. If Yeldon can't go, and I do not think Yeldon's going to be able to go this week, possibly not next week as well, get Denard Robinson in your lineups. He plays Atlanta this week and New Orleans next week. That is fantasy football gold in week 16. So get Denard Robinson if you haven't already and plug him in this week if you can. So that concludes my week 15 sits and starts. Hit subscribe if you like these videos. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me some feedback in the comments section. That's always appreciated. You can also follow me on Twitter at FantasyTeach.